Today I'm going to talk about social construction. Said differently, this is a way that we create stories that define our reality. We create stories that shape our perceptions of other people, of situations, of our relationships, and essentially everything we believe to be true. Think about this for a moment. Each one of us has the power to create, together with others around us, the reality that we perceive as true. So what does this mean in terms of business and life in the corporation? I'd like to introduce you to what I call the pyramid of leadership delusion. The pyramid of delusion is one in which we can see the hierarchical structure of an organization from the top to the bottom. I argue that those at the top live in a completely different reality than those at the bottom. This probably seems intuitively true. Of course, the people at the top have different responsibilities, and they have to look at everything from a different perspective. This is all very true. I would add that what they think is happening below them, how they think the organization really works, is not at all the way they think it does. You see, each layer of the pyramid of delusion is created or colored by what I call the corporate storytellers for that layer. Storytelling goes back to the beginning of human existence. Great storytellers are the ones that change the world through their stories. In corporations, these storytellers are the people that create the corporate reality at each level. Usually these people surround the leaders at each level, and through their stories create the impressions that the leaders and followers assume to be true and that guide their actions and behaviors. These are the people, through their stories, that have the power to compel people into believing in the reality they are telling. You know these people. Many of them are respected and have what we call charisma. These people often have personal power, and they use it to support the stories they tell, to create the reality that others believe in. These corporate storytellers help to create the social reality within the corporation. Speaking of power, another type of power in business is the power to decide which stories are told. This can be referred to as agenda power. Can you think of anyone with agenda power in your organization? Think about the people who actually decide what will be discussed at meetings, who will be present, and sometimes more importantly, what will not be discussed and who will not be present. Think about the power being in this position brings. I always like to think about the power wielded by the executive administrative assistant. She decides who gets a meeting with the executive and who does not. Now back to the pyramid of delusion. Since each layer has a set of storytellers, and these people may hold personal power and/or agenda power, they have the power to influence the reality in the area they operate. Each group at each level has socially constructed reality that is different, and the differences grow the more levels you go up or down. At a meeting with the leadership team recently, one of the newer members stated that many changes had been implemented since he came on board, and everyone nodded in agreement. The reality was that many changes had been announced, but none had been implemented. The reality is that the operational team had decided not to implement the changes. So was this person lying to his boss and peers? Well, no. You see, he believed his own story. The supervisors below him were smart enough to tell the manager a story that allowed the manager to believe that what he wanted done was being done. You see, the supervisors knew that by telling him this story, they would keep him off their backs. They in turn told the people they supervised a different story. What nobody really knew or understood was that this little story aimed to keep everyone happy was actually creating a wider gap between the reality of the management team and the operational reality. Another way I've seen social construction used in business is for individuals to create stories about other people, sometimes other people that they want to discredit. I knew this one executive that was a master at this, and she hardly had to say anything. A well-placed comment such as, "Oh, that Ed is so smart, it's too bad he's so unorganized," or, "Oh, that Sue does such great work at the individual level, I'm just not sure she should be leading a team." Those little comments plant seeds in the heads of people who hear them, and over time these seeds can and often do shape what they observe about the people in question. And over time they find evidence that Ed and Sue are not very competent in their jobs, and they in turn plant new seeds supporting this new perception. Soon a new socially constructed reality exists about Ed or Sue. They probably didn't know what hit them. So now we've talked a little bit about the power of social construction and how people's reality is shaped by the environment and the people around them, and most importantly, the stories they decide to believe. What is one to do? I once had the opportunity to meet a very powerful corporate leader. He was involved in top secret government programs and ran a number of very profitable and influential businesses. Here I was, someone not only at a different level in the pyramid, but from one of his subsidiary businesses, and I was asked to come to talk to him for an hour about my perception of a particular business sector. It was only later that I realized that the reason I was of interest to this leader is that he looked for stories that contradicted his own constructed reality. My story was different enough that he wanted to hear it. I told my story, he listened, and more than that, he made some multi-million-dollar decisions based upon my story. Later I found out that I was one of many people that he spoke to, and all of these people had something in common. We were at all different levels in the pyramid, and we all had unique stories, stories that were different from those he was constantly being fed. I realized later that this man knew about the pyramid of delusion. He may not have called it that, but he knew how to avoid being isolated into a reality shaped by just a few. He would actually seek out and listen to other stories, and then he shaped a new, bigger story for himself. I think this is a big part of the reason he was so successful. So today we've looked at the power of social construction and how it is used to create perceptions of reality. We've looked at the pyramid of delusion and how powerful corporate storytelling can be. We have looked briefly at a couple of different types of power, including personal power, or the power to compel people to believe you, and agenda power, the power to determine which stories are heard. So practically, what does all of this mean? There are storytellers all around us. We are storytellers, and together with others we create the reality that we live within. When groups of people get together and a group story is formed, it is called social construction, and over time it becomes the unquestionable reality, or the reality we take for granted. People are bound by the stories created through social construction. We live and act in the assumption that we know what reality is, and reality is what we create together. The only way to change your reality is to allow a new story to be heard. Think about the pyramid of delusion. The structure is made of stone and the walls and floors are solid. You cannot see out from inside of a pyramid. Alternatively, think about a glass house, a house where you can see everything around you, where there are clear passages and you can see beyond the walls. I like to think of the glass house as a different type of pyramid, a pyramid of possibilities. I like to think that if we choose to listen to many different stories and open our eyes to many possible realities, that we can be more in touch with ourselves, with our businesses, and the people who run them for us. So my question to you is, which pyramid will you choose?